you think this deal has a chance?
Well, I think we're in a state of utter confusion now. At least Trump is in a state of utter confusion. The operation to open the Strait of Hormuz was an entirely sensible thing for him to do. I think it's one way to take the gun away from the temple of the international economy that the Iranians have appointed. But to stop now in search of a one-page deal is a big mistake. Any one-page deal is not a piece of paper worth what it's has printed on it, because these issues are very complex. What Trump wants is out of this for domestic political purposes. He's grasping at straws, and I think throwing away a lot of the advantages that he's achieved in the attacks. Notwithstanding, he's done plenty of things wrong. This is a big mistake if it's true.
So what do you think he should be doing? Finishing the job?
Right. Look, I've thought for over 20 years that the only way you're going to have peace and stability in the Middle East and eliminate the nuclear terrorist threats from the regime in Tehran is to get a new regime there. Now, I don't know what Trump's objectives are. I don't know what they were at the beginning of the attacks or today, for that matter. But I think we've definitely shaken the regime. And if we could keep the blockade on Iranian shipments of oil in place, but open up commerce from the Gulf Arab states to allow their oil and gas to come onto international markets, I think the Iranians would be in a very, very difficult position.
I'll come back to the Strait of Hormuz in just a second, but regime change has always been fanciful, hasn't it, without a far more extensive campaign involving, inevitably, American boots on the ground. And Trump simply hasn't got the appetite for that, has he?
No, I don't think there's any question here of American boots on the ground except for very limited missions. But I think given the overwhelming unpopularity of the regime all across the country, the young people, 2/3 of the population are under 30. They can't stand it. The women can't stand it. The ethnic groups can't stand it. The economies was a disaster before the war even started. And I think the damage that's been done in just the 6 weeks of the attacks has begun to cause the regime to come apart at the top, eliminating hundreds of their leaders, doing incredible damage to the institutions of Iranian state power. To stop now, I think, is a big mistake. But Trump himself has made plenty of other mistakes, notably not doing enough to help the opposition. We could still do that, though, and I think regime change is possible without significant ground forces being committed by us.
You say the regime has been fundamentally weakened, but in some ways you could argue the opposite. In fact, the IRGC, for example, has entrenched its hold. The people are more fearful now than they were. So the idea of a popular uprising is for the birds.
Well, I think the IRGC has been in power really for the last half dozen to 10 years or more. And the regime clearly is even before the war started, is capable of brutalizing the population. There's no doubt about that. They massacred over 40,000 people in January for protesting the economic conditions. So a lot needs to be done to aid the opposition. Trump should have started that before the war began. But the level of unpopularity cannot be underestimated. And I think there are a lot of figures, even in the regime, seeing that ship may be going down, who could determine they don't want to go down with it.
What are the consequences, in your view, if Trump does sue for peace now?
Well, I think the Iranians will be able to turn the Strait of Hormuz on and off like a light switch if that happens. That threat was always palpable. Everybody who can read a map could see that somebody in the Gulf, whether it was Iran or somebody else, could try and put a chokehold on oil exports. Now Iran has done it. And if there's any chance to restore deterrence against Iran, it's evicting them from the position they have by military force. If they simply sign a diplomatic agreement and back away, they have leave to come in 6 months from now and do it again. And with some measure that Trump wouldn't have the spine next time to do what he's just finished doing for the 6 weeks of the attacks.
Trump's going to China in a week. We had the Iranian foreign minister meeting his Chinese counterpart ahead of that. China's sort of pitching itself as a mediator. What do you hope that Trump is able to get out of that visit?
Well, I think Trump certainly wants to make a trade deal with China. I don't see that that's been prepared. I don't see it's in the works. Maybe can sign another one-page deal. Those are easy to agree to and easy to ignore. the fact is China has a lot at stake in keeping the regime in power in Tehran, as does Russia. As part of the Beijing-Moscow axis, they've been forming over the past several years, the partnership without limits, as Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin call it. Iran has been their principal outrider in the Middle East. And keeping the regime in power is very much in their interest. Certainly, China, as a huge importer of oil from the Gulf, would like to see the oil exports resume. But it was purchasing most of its oil before the attacks from the Saudis and the Emiratis, only a smaller amount from Iran. So it has an interest in that, but so does the rest of the world.
Do you think it's a good idea for Trump to go and meet, to do this visit to China, or not?
Well, I don't think it's the right time to do it, but as you may remember, he canceled one trip at the end of March, early April, to postpone it to mid-May. He wants to go back to Beijing. There's no doubt about it in my mind. He once told Theresa May in 2018, when he was visiting her at Chequers, that his 2017 visit to China showed the Chinese had given him the biggest welcome they had given any foreign leader in all of Chinese history. And Mrs. May didn't know quite how to respond to that, nor did the rest of us at the table. But he's hoping to break his own record from 2017. He wants to go to Beijing. I think he will go, whether it's advisable or not.
I mean, can he hope for Chinese help on this crucial matter of reopening the Strait of Hormuz, which it's killing economies around the world?
Well, if the Chinese could have their way, sure, they'd love to see the Strait of Hormuz open, because if the regime in Tehran could derive revenues from the unsanctioned sale of oil, China could buy more oil from Iran. The revenues flowing into the government's coffers in Tehran would allow it to start paying its troops and its employees again. They might be able to get the Iranian economy to get that started again, because it's in truly dismal shape. I think opening the Strait of Hormuz to everybody at this time clearly benefits Iran more than anybody else.
Is there any sense that Trump can offer some concessions, for example, on Taiwan, billions of dollars of arms sales to Taiwan? China clearly wants to push him on that. Any sense of a kind of quid pro quo there?
Well, I don't think we see anything publicly. I know the people on Taiwan are very worried that they're part of the menu, and they're very nervous about it. I think that would be a huge mistake for Trump, but his search to be able to say he made a deal, which is his life's greatest mission, doesn't matter what the deal says, he just likes to say he made another deal. It's possible that he would make concessions on Taiwan. I think it would be a big mistake, but I think realistically he would do it in a heartbeat if he thought it would get him a deal.
Just standing back for a moment, you're a long-standing critic of Trump. Some around the world are saying this is the biggest energy crisis in history. Do you think, because of what Donald Trump has done in Iran, the way he's handled this conflict, the world is now in a more precarious, more dangerous place than at any point in living memory, really?
No, I mean, I am critical of the way he's handled it in many respects. We don't have time to go through them all, but it certainly wasn't, I think, done in the way most advantageous to U.S. interest. But I don't think this is an oil shock comparable, for example, to the OPEC embargoes and price increases of the early 1970s. I think that was a real energy shock. I think there are ways to make this up, and I think countries and businesses are already taking mitigating steps. I think in Europe, perhaps the effect is felt more negatively than in the United States, where the price of gasoline is $4.50 a pump on a national average. As of a few weeks ago in Germany, it was roughly $8 or $9 a gallon. So Europe's feeling the pinch more than the United States, which, by the way, is one reason why it was a mistake for Europeans to say this is not our war. It certainly is.
Although they've seen the chaos that has ensued and thought that their electorates are really quite happy to be out of it. But your message generally, Trump should hold his nerve on this.
Yeah, Winston Churchill was once reported to have said in connection with the Suez Crisis of 1956, when Britain and France tried to take over the Suez Canal unsuccessfully, Churchill reportedly said, "I would not have dared to try it. But if I had, I would not have dared to stop."